And so if you look at purification and treatment technology patents, about 57% of the patents issued focused on purification and treatment. Not all of these in big public domestic water systems. And a lot of this dealt with rural villages, rural systems, sort of you might call third world settings where water is really at a premium. But I believe there's an opportunity to engage our massive and highly skilled biomed community in looking at waterborne diseases and waterborne disease treatments and purification processes and technologies. That we have this resource and we're not exploiting it in a way that would help really generate value to ourselves and to the world. So that's a market trend that I think is worthy of taking a serious look at as we go forward. And the fourth area that I mentioned before is federal investment. The Great Lakes Regional Collaborative is producing about $475 million in federal funding towards the Great Lakes. I'm not going to discuss the federal deficit because my head will explode. But if they're going to spend that kind of money as a taxpayer, I might as well try to get our money back. And I will tell you, most of this is targeted towards areas of concern like the Cuyahoga River. So that's important to remember. And some of it deals with $147 million is targeted towards toxic sediments and cleanup of areas of concern. $60 million is focused on invasive species and related contaminated ballast water treatments, and $105 million is targeted on urban habitat restoration. We have problems in all of those areas, and so I think we have a huge talent set and university skill set and industrial base that yields huge opportunities to our region to try to focus our effort on getting some of that money back. If we got our money back, it would improve our environment, which is a good thing. It would help us develop new models for future collaboration. It would help us develop technology that would be of Great Lakes and worldwide significance. I believe, in fact I know, we've got the skills and the industries in town that would help do that. As a comparative example, I want to take the last minute or so before we do questions and talk a little bit about an industrial example from a nearby city of ours in the Great Lakes, from Milwaukee. The Milwaukee water industries organized themselves less than 3 years ago into what's called the Milwaukee 7 Water Council. It was an assembly of water-related industries, and these are very disparate water-related industries from companies like Badger Meter that measure meter flow, Miller Brewing that makes beer, A.O. Smith that makes water heaters. Very disparate types of companies, but they all share a common resource, which is water and its use. And they organized a water council. They realized there were real opportunities to work together. They were very knowledgeable about water resources and recent trends, so they didn't waste any time on feasibility studies or conceptual planning. They just organized. And they saw the potential for strong collaborations to take advantage of their interrelated skill sets, which is an important lesson. They linked quickly to the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee, and Marquette University and the University of Wisconsin at Whitewater, and developed specific relationships in terms of water law, water science, water technology. And they helped lead a push in less than 3 years to the state on behalf of the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee, and and the state made a commitment to create a new school of freshwater science at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. $245 million commitment appropriated by the state of Wisconsin to the Milwaukee effort for the School of Freshwater Science. And that all happened in less than 3 years. And the state of Wisconsin recognized the role and value of Wisconsin and Milwaukee being water technology leaders. And even though they're as equally fiscally stressed as Ohio, if not more so, made a commitment for the long-term potential of water in a global setting to get involved. I told the director of Wisconsin DNR that 5 years from now, you'll be 10 years ahead of Ohio, because while we're hunkering down, they're taking the jump forward. It's a real leap of faith, but they've also committed as a collaboration, the entire community assembled to really work together closely on that. They're also participating heavily in international trade missions with the state of Wisconsin to promote water technology. They have some growing partnerships with Israel, which is very, very fragile in its water supply and water dependency, and therefore growing terrific technology in that area. And they also coalesced their resources and applied for and were designated by the United Nations just earlier this year a global compact city for water technology enterprise and expertise. That's a unique designation. There's only 2 U.S. cities that have specific UN Global Compact designations for a specific skill set, and one is in San Francisco and one is now Milwaukee. It's the only city in the Great Lakes that has it. So it's a pretty impressive story in about 2.5, almost not quite 3 years worth of effort by industries. And so I felt that some of our work in our region needs to have a stronger level of leadership by industrial partners or industrial civic members. They clearly have expertise and they clearly have a potential for return. And many of you know in our region we've probably had 3 that I can count of at least studies, proposals for freshwater institutes, global water institutes, different kinds of things that have been drifting around on and off with feasibility studies, heavily funded by foundations since 2004. So for 5 or 6 years, our region has been kicking these rocks around the neighborhood, but we haven't coalesced into a single entity that's produced results. Literally, since we started our Green Bulkhead project, the Milwaukee Water Council has organized itself, formed a partnership, generated a massive state investments, and now they're collecting brain power from all over the United States to populate this new university. Pretty interesting process, and I think there's a cautionary tale there that we can do better than we have been so far. And all of these are forms of investment that are going to continue to yield economic benefit. In the next 20 years or so, the Sur District and Akron are going to spend about $2.5 billion more on combined sewer overflow treatment technology. So we know we're going to continue to spend a lot of money in place-based investment in restoring our river. But I think we have a lot of opportunities in our biomed community and our industrial settings, and certainly the federal funding is coming to the Great Lakes to really generate interest and enthusiasm and bring some of our resources back. So as I said at the beginning, environmental restoration is more likely to happen when there's a perceived economic benefit. And we've got real benefits in our community as a result of 40 years of investment in our infrastructure and to show what the Cuyahoga River is like now. And I think the future going forward is great, if not greater, given the situation of water in the world economy. So I call on those of you here today, those of you watching otherwise, to consider getting involved in a really coalesced effort to really bring our industries together to really lead an effort to promote water restoration and the economic development of the region. So thank you very much.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to a special program featuring Jim White, Executive Director of the Cuyahoga River Remedial Action Plan. Now we'd like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphone today is Special Programs Committee member Sue Nelson. First question, please.
Jim, I want to pose a question I'm sure is dear to your heart, and that is, what are the sources of your funding, and over the course of the RAP, how are you doing these days?
Yeah, thank you, Pat. Our funding model, like many water-related non-governmental organizations, is heavily dependent on grants. We get a variety of grants and contributions. Traditionally, we've gotten funding from federal government from a variety of federal sources, EPA, Forest Service, a little bit from the Corps of Engineers, and also from Ohio EPA and the Ohio Lake Erie Commission and Ohio Department of Natural Resources, all of our local, terrific local foundations. The Gun Foundation has been very supportive, and periodically the Cleveland Foundation steps up from on specific things. And recently, the sewer district has embarked on a program to provide some operating support to local